I've walked the streets of Paris at sunrise. I've gotten lost in Tokyo's neon maze. I've hustled through New York like a local. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what I found in Malaysia. And the craziest part? Most travelers are making one huge mistake that causes them to completely miss it. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Malaysia might be the most underrated destination on Earth. But first, let me show you what happened on my third day in Kuala Lumpur that changed everything. So there I was, standing in the middle of Jalan Alor at 11 p.m. To my left, a Chinese grandmother is grilling satay over charcoal flames. To my right, an Indian vendor is flipping roti canai with movements so fluid it looks like a magic trick. Directly in front of me, a Malay family is sharing nasi lemak while speaking 3 different languages in one sentence. And here's where it gets interesting. The grandmother notices I'm overwhelmed. She doesn't speak much English, but she gestures me over, hands me a stick of chicken satay, refuses my money, and says something in Hokkien that her grandson translates, "You look confused. That means you're in the right place." That moment broke something in my brain. Because in Paris, Tokyo, or New York, everything feels curated, designed, like you're supposed to experience it a certain way. But Malaysia feels like someone left the door unlocked to 3 different civilizations and said, "Figure it out yourselves." But here's what nobody tells you about this cultural mixing, and it's going to sound controversial. Malaysia isn't a melting pot. It's a mosaic that somehow refuses to blend, and that's exactly what makes it magical. In most multicultural cities, you get fusion. Things merge, adapt, homogenize. But Malaysia kept its borders sharp. Chinese temples sit next to Indian mosques next to Malay food stalls, and nobody's apologizing for taking up space. Each culture is loud, proud, and completely itself. Now, you might be thinking, doesn't that create tension? And yes, historically, it has. But here's what I discovered that you won't read in any guidebook. The food is where the peace treaty was signed. Stay with me here because this is where Malaysia gets really interesting. While the cultures maintain their distinct identities architecturally, religiously, and socially, the food became this neutral ground where everyone agreed to experiment. That's why you get dishes that shouldn't exist: Chinese noodles with Malay spices and Indian curry. Roti canai that's neither Indian nor Malay but somehow perfectly both. In Paris, you eat French food. In Tokyo, Japanese cuisine. In New York, you pick a cuisine. But in Malaysia, the cuisine picked Malaysia and decided to throw every rule out the window. And this is just the surface level. Because what I discovered about Malaysian food prices is going to make you question every expensive meal you've ever eaten in Western cities. Let me paint you a picture with actual numbers, because this is where Malaysia stops making sense in the best way possible. In Paris, I paid €24 for a croissant and coffee at a cafe. That's roughly $26 USD. In Tokyo, a decent ramen bowl ran me 1,400 yen, about $9.50. New York. Don't even get me started, $18 for a basic lunch sandwich is considered reasonable. Now here's where your brain is going to short-circuit. In Kuala Lumpur, I had the best meal of my entire trip, and I'm including that Michelin-starred restaurant in Paris, for 18 ringgit. That's $3.80 United States cents. Not for a snack. For a full meal. With meat. And vegetables. And rice. And a drink. But here's what's really crazy, and this is what changed my entire perspective on travel economics. The quality didn't drop. If anything, it increased. That chicken rice was made by a vendor who's been perfecting his recipe for 30 years. The char kway teow was cooked by someone who learned from the grandmother, who learned from her grandmother. These aren't cheap meals, they're generational masterpieces sold at hawker prices. This created a problem for me, though. A problem you're going to face the moment you land in Malaysia, and I need to warn you about it now because nobody warned me. You will gain weight in Malaysia. Not might. Will. Because here's what happens, you eat breakfast, nasi lemak, maybe 2 ringgit, 42 cents. You're full. But then you walk past a roti canai stall, and the smell pulls you in like a tractor beam. That's another 1.50 ringgit, 31 cents. You're definitely full now. 2 hours later, you pass a sendal cart. It's 95 degrees Fahrenheit, humid as a sauna, and that icy, sweet, coconut milk dessert is calling your name. 3 ringgit, 63 cents. Lunch rolls around. You weren't even hungry, but your local friend insists you try their favorite chicken rice spot. You can't say no, that's just 5 ringgit, $1.05. Afternoon snack, curry puffs from a random stall. 1 ringgit, 21 cents, each. You buy 3, just in case. And then dinner. Oh, dinner is where things get dangerous. Because by now, you've realized something that changes everything. You can eat like royalty for $10 a day. This economic reality warps your entire relationship with food. But here's the question nobody asks, and it's the question that's going to reveal the real secret of Malaysia. Why is everything so affordable without sacrificing quality? The answer isn't what you think. It's not lower labor costs or cheaper ingredients. It's something deeper, something cultural that Western countries lost decades ago. Hawker culture. See, in Paris, Tokyo, and New York, there's this invisible tax on ambition. You want to start a restaurant. You need $500,000 for a space, permits, interior design, marketing. You need investors, business plans, insurance. The overhead forces you to charge $25 for a plate of pasta just to break even. But in Malaysia, hawker centers are government-subsidized public spaces. You want to sell food. You rent a stall for a few $100s a month, bring your recipe, and that's it. No massive loans. No investors breathing down your neck demanding profit margins. Just you, your food, and the people. This creates something profound. It lets mastery exist without pretension. That 70-year-old man making Hokkien mee. He's not trying to become a chain restaurant. He's not chasing Michelin stars. He's just making the best Hokkien mee possible because that's what his father did, and that's what his father's father did. The low overhead means he can focus on craft, not capitalism. But here's where this gets really interesting, and it's something I didn't understand until my second week there. This system doesn't just preserve food culture, it preserves intergenerational knowledge. In Western cities, rent increases push out family businesses. Grandma's recipe dies when the landlord doubles the lease. But in Malaysia, that knowledge transfers because the economic model supports it. The hawker stall becomes a time capsule, and every $2 plate of food is actually a history lesson you can eat. Now, you're probably wondering about the other aspects of Malaysia, the nature, the cities, the people. And that's where things get even more interesting, because what I discovered about Malaysian urban planning is something every major city should study. Kuala Lumpur is what happens when a city refuses to choose an identity. In Paris, everything architecturally reinforces, this is Paris. Tokyo screams modernity. New York is vertical capitalism. But KL said, yes, to everything. You've got the Petronas Twin Towers, ultra-modern, Islamic geometric, symbolizing Malaysia's future. Right next to it, literally a 10-minute walk, are wooden Malay houses from the 1920s. Turn a corner, and there's a Hindu temple covered in thousands of colorful deities. Cross the street, British colonial architecture. Walk 5 more minutes, Chinese clan houses with dragons on the roof. This should feel chaotic. It should feel like a theme park or an architectural identity crisis. But it doesn't. And here's why: nobody's trying to erase anything. In most cities, progress means demolition. Old makes way for new. But Malaysia seems to have this unspoken rule that you can build the future without destroying the past. It's urban planning as layering, not replacement. This created something I've never experienced anywhere else, and it's going to sound strange, but stick with me. You can time travel within a single afternoon. Morning, modern coffee shop in KLCC, working on your laptop with fiber optic internet. Noon, Chinatown, buying traditional medicine from a shop that opened in 1897. Afternoon, Hindu temple in brickfields that's been holding ceremonies since the 1800s. Evening, rooftop bar in Bukit Bintang with a cocktail menu that would fit perfectly in Manhattan. No other city lets you do this without massive geographical distances. In New York, you need to fly to experience genuinely different cultures. In Paris or Tokyo, you need to leave the city entirely. But Malaysia compressed the world into a space you can navigate by train and foot. And this brings me to something crucial. Something that explains why Malaysia hits different, in a way that Paris, Tokyo, and New York simply cannot. Malaysia is 61% Muslim, 20% Buddhist, 9% Christian, 6% Hindu, plus various indigenous beliefs. It has 3 major ethnic groups that historically had reasons for conflict. It speaks dozens of languages across different communities. By every geopolitical model, this shouldn't work. But here's what I noticed after spending time there, and it's going to challenge how you think about diversity. Malaysia doesn't push integration. It just creates spaces where coexistence is the path of least resistance. Let me explain with an example: Ramadan in Malaysia. During Ramadan, Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset. In some countries, this means restaurants close. Non-Muslims are expected not to eat in public, and there's pressure to conform. But in Malaysia, Chinese restaurants stay open. Indian coffee shops keep serving. Malay food stalls close during the day but open these incredible Ramadan bazaars at sunset where everyone, Muslim, Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, shows up to eat together. Nobody's asking anyone to fast if it's not their faith. But everyone's invited to the feast when the fast breaks. This sounds simple, but it's revolutionary in practice. Because it means Muslims can practice fully without requiring everyone else to participate, while simultaneously sharing the celebratory parts openly. It's the opposite of isolation or forced assimilation. I saw this repeat with every festival: Chinese New Year, Deepavali, Christmas. The celebrating community goes all out, but the doors are open. You're invited, not obligated. And here's the controversial part that some people might disagree with, but I'm going to say it anyway. This might be a more sustainable model of multiculturalism than what Western countries are attempting. Because in places like Paris, New York, or even London, the multicultural project often feels like it's trying to create a new, blended identity. Everyone's supposed to become French or American while maintaining their heritage. It creates this tension between assimilation and preservation. Malaysia just doesn't do that. Be as Chinese, Indian, or Malay as you want. Nobody's waiting for you to blend. But share the food, respect the festivals, and don't be an asshole. That's the social contract. Now, before you book a flight based on everything I've said, there's something important I need to tell you about Malaysia that most travel videos conveniently leave out. Malaysia is not perfect. The humidity will murder you. We're talking 85–95% humidity with 90 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. You'll sweat through your clothes standing still. Your camera lens will fog up stepping outside. It's oppressive. The traffic in KL can be nightmarish. Public transport, while decent, doesn't cover everything. You'll need Grab, Southeast Asian Uber, and while it's cheap, you'll spend time in cars. The political situation is complex. There are race-based policies that favor ethnic Malays, which creates tension. Income inequality exists. There's corruption. There are environmental issues with deforestation and pollution. I'm telling you this because the Malaysia hits different isn't about it being paradise. It's about it being different in ways that make you reconsider what you value in a travel experience. Paris is beautiful, but you're paying for polished perfection. Tokyo is efficient, but you're experiencing controlled precision. New York is exciting, but you're in a performance of constant ambition. Malaysia doesn't perform for you. It just exists, loudly and unapologetically, as this messy, contradictory, impossible but functioning experiment in human coexistence. And that authenticity, that lack of curation, is what hits different. But here's the big question I keep getting asked, and it's the one I want to answer before we close out. Should I skip Paris, Tokyo, New York for Malaysia? No, absolutely not. Here's what I learned. Malaysia isn't better than those cities. It's different in a way that completes them. Paris teaches you refinement. Tokyo teaches you precision. New York teaches you ambition. But Malaysia teaches you something those cities can't, how to let go of control and trust the chaos. Because here's the thing about traveling to Paris, Tokyo, or New York, you can plan them. There are guides, maps, optimal routes, must-see lists. You can engineer the perfect trip. Malaysia resists this. The best experiences happen when you wander. When you follow your nose to a random food stall. When you accept an invitation from a stranger to their home for dinner. When you get lost and find a neighborhood celebration you didn't know was happening. It rewards spontaneity in a way that heavily touristed cities simply can't anymore, because those cities have been optimized to death. So here's my actual recommendation, and this is what I wish someone had told me: do Paris, Tokyo, or New York first. Learn what a world-class destination feels like. Understand the high bar of curation, design, and international standards. Then go to Malaysia. Because Malaysia will redefine what a world-class destination can be. It'll show you that the best travel experiences aren't always the most polished ones. That $3 can buy you something more memorable than $100 if the context is right. That cultural preservation doesn't require museums, it can happen in a hawker stall. And most importantly, it'll teach you that hitting different isn't about being better. It's about being so distinctly itself that comparison becomes meaningless. I started this video standing in Paris, Tokyo, and New York, thinking I understood what great cities looked like. Malaysia didn't just move the goalposts. It asked why we were playing that game in the first place. So if you're the kind of traveler who wants every photo to look like an Instagram post, every meal to come with a story you can brag about, every experience to be optimized, maybe hold off on Malaysia. But if you're ready to experience a place that's messy, contradictory, impossibly affordable, overwhelmingly delicious, and so culturally dense that you'll need a week just to process it all, Malaysia is waiting. And trust me, it's going to hit different. If this changed how you think about travel, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me which city you think hits different, and I'll see you in the next one. Now if you'll excuse me, I have $5 and a hawker center calling my name.